please welcome to the stage. This next guest will literally blow your socks off. Literally, like we're doing a sock donation later. So if you could put your socks in the bin to the back, that would be great. Please welcome Walker Smith.
Can everyone hear me without the microphone? Is that okay?
Yes.
I tend to not like microphones because they amplify more of the infrared region of the auditory spectrum. Today I'd like to begin our talk on the very new field, the very exciting field of land-aside vector combinatorial invariance analytics. And specifically, I'd like to focus our discussion on the application of NDS 7+ artificial intelligence algorithms to analyze the exponentially delineated relationship between Hamiltonian free space and transnuclear geopoliticization of anachronistic postmodernism. Focusing here specifically on its distinctly anthropomorphized effect on bourgeois anarchist quantum chromoelectrodynamic superpositions in 4s2 3d0, note the 0 there, that'll be important later, pseudo-organometallic orbital inversion paradigms with an asymptotically variable quark-hadron plasma in which lambda size greater than or equal to 80.314 times n minus 1. So some of you may have maybe a little familiar with this, but I hope not too much of it is repetitive. However, before we pontificate about existentialist queries, what does it mean to be an analyst? And moreover, what are the tenets of non-degenerate Fourier transforms that allow this kind of thinking about the organic and inorganic phases of natural selection to truly come to pass? Well, in order to understand this really complex idea, we must first look at some data. Now, if you'll direct your attention to the screen, this graph was recently published in the Swiss Journal of Applied and Fundamental Research in Palladium-catalyzed India-Mozambique negotiations. And the trend should be fairly clear to all of you. But if I must elaborate, I shall quote the study's author in proclaiming that the formally illustrated trends provide us a novel opportunity to recontextualize and further extend Berth and Streepiler's 30-year-old Hartree-Fock STO 3G minimal basis set computational theory that revealed the allyl anion drops a central bond angle of 132.5 degrees. Now, many of you may have gathered that this, of course, does violate the central dogma of the Banach-Tarski paradox, necessitating a broad and dialectically variable paradigm shift in our manner of analyzing cross-cultural hypovalent data about NP systems. Now, this can obviously be tied to the troublesome yet fascinating phenomenon of gobthrottling, in which two independent observers can obtain the same exact results using two distinctly non-idealized analytical systems centered around the three main variable axioms, whereby heretofore will be presently considered. The first is already on the screen, as you can see, and it involves a propensity for spatial mobility in isolated geographical systems. Now, this is a fairly commonplace topic, so I won't belabor it too much. So the second is a little more complex because we need to necessitate a broadband access to the delta region of most lithophilic CD4+ facades. Now notice that I haven't included CD8+ here, or any CDN+ where n is greater than or equal to 8. And that is because such facades are often so fluorophilic that they tend to not be lithophilic enough to engage in hetero-homo-heliophilic interactions with fluorolithic reverse spin state dihelium molecular systems. The third and most important factor is promoting an intrinsic appreciation among these researchers for the delta size statistical significance coefficient, which may seem daunting to calculate at first, but it can actually be arrived at using the following fairly simple mathematical formula with which I presume most of you are already familiar. Now, insofar as these axioms are intrinsically invariable, they are not without some Cartesian inconsistencies, of course. And when I tell my critics about this, they often respond by pointing out that any covariant pseudo-eigenvector is, by definition, topographically coplanar in all 7 axes of symmetry, with the one exception being a hyperbolic Hurwitz surface exhibiting an unusually high degree of automorphism, as you can see. Now, nevertheless, and notwithstanding further adjudication, I'd like to move on. What the critics often miss in their staunchly anti-propositional denouncement of this modus operandi is the very fact that any, and I really do mean any, I cannot stress this point enough, truly exhaustive definition of Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory is fundamentally inferior to the synthetic approaches laid out in the denouement of the 20th century by Casey Nicolau and Elias James Corey. And many of you are already familiar with these activists and their great contribution to science. So I shouldn't need to elaborate too much. However, if any of you happen to not be familiar with either of these lovely gentlemen, I would direct you to any of my over 17 New York Times best-selling titles, or any of my over 3,000 recently published peer-reviewed journal articles. I'd like to call your attention specifically to the last book, which was published very recently on January 29th, 2020, entitled, Where is Waldo Now? A pre-postmodern commentary on the absurdité of vis-à-vis la France du spectacle. And all these titles are available at a special discount to you for attending this conference at the IMU bookstore. But you can only reach them at their hours, which are noon to 1 o'clock on Sundays. Now, this last point about the conflict between Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory and the Corey-Nicolau method of substrate-level oxidative phosphorylation in ATP synthase molecules actually segues fairly well into my next topic, which concerns the demarcation of abolitionist gerrymandering throughout Puerto Rican history. Specifically, we're going to look at the latter half of the 14th century in Puerto Rico, where it was fairly common for Eastern Byzantines, as you see here, to raid kingdoms in northern Burgundy. And they tended to focus most of their attacks on the Eastern Front. As you can see here, we have the Eastern Front. Over here we have the Western Front. And the point of this was to avoid the use of extremely toxic chemical weapons from the 14th century. You see, I believe we have some contradiction in the typo. Just ignore that. That should say 17th century, and that should say 14th century. So they were very wary about these two chemical weapons. The one on the left you see is RS2-propanol methylphosphonofluoridate, and the one further left of that is bis 2-chloroethyl N-methoxyethyl 1,1-diphenyl-2-propanamide. And both of these have very low ED50 values and even lower safe exposure limits. Include the one on the left, as you see there, not that left, actually has a safe exposure limit of fewer than 50 angstroms per zectoliter. Keep that number in mind. That's one of the lowest in recorded history. And before I introduce my last topic, I would like to briefly touch on the topic of seismological intervalency. And to do this, I would like to welcome to the stage 3 audience members to volunteer. If we can see a show of hands, anyone interested in participating? We have 1 and 2. That is, can we have someone from this side maybe? You, sir, yes. Why don't you come to the stage? Just come on up. Stand right here. Come on, please. No, you get on that side, please. Never mind. This. All right. Well, first let's introduce ourselves. What's your name, sir? Fascinating. Okay. What's your name, sir? Okay. Yes. What's your name, sir?
Garrett.
Garrett. Okay. Wonderful. Garrett. Okay. I would like you to first, with me in this, please join me in first realigning your central axis of sensory perception so that it is equidistantly equestrian to those around you and simultaneously perpendicular to all other spheres of sensory and non-sensory perception. Now, recontextualize your diatonically chromatic spheres and focus the energy on all of those around you. And please, just do after me. Just listen. Listen for the vibrations. Listen for that seismological intervalence. And often, you need to really be close to the Earth. And because the Earth carries the best vibrations. Do this. Please join me. This is close. The Earth carries the best vibrations. Yes, you can hear that. Yes. Fascinating. All right, can we get a wonderful round of applause? Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Share it, everyone. And that brings me to my last point. And for this, I thought I had, where's the management? Can we get a chalkboard on stage, please? I require a chalkboard. Thank you. Oh, that's a faster next time. It's a bit small, but I suppose it will do. Let me see if I have it. Yes, I brought my trusty chalk. Perfect. I must apologize in advance because you just like this. Yeah, if you could a little bit. That's hide your face because it might distract me. I must apologize in advance because when I teach this topic to my pupils at Oxford University, many of them often complain that I can get a little bit too excited about the topic and start speaking too quickly and beginning to mumble. So if that is the case, I invite you as a fairly perceptive audience to please let me know and I shall slow down to make it more understandable. But I'd like you to draw your attention because really all of you were probably wondering, what does all that I have been saying have to do with the Suzuki Miura cross coupling? Well, I shall answer that presently. You can see that we start with a palladium-2 catalyzed reduction species. And this is very important because palladium-2 is actually more stable than most other transition metals, you see, especially in the nucleophilic state. And you can react that with a borocatalyzed organoboron complex. And you can get the transmetallation and the LMPD and the ligand state changes from 1 to 2. And you can start to draw triangles as well. You can go double triangles, you can give it double, and you can even react it with adjacent carbon ligand centers. And you can take the oh shit, you can take it. And you can people say you can't calculate. You can calculate. People say you can't calculate. So you can always calculate. You can always calculate. You can take. Listen. You can hear the use this. You can hear. Any questions? Yes, sir, down in front.
Yeah, I was wondering how exactly, or moreover, why exactly do the NDH-7-CD8 plus data structures tend to bifurcate the transitory accoutrement associé avec et transalloqué entre la dispersion de radium intranucléaire et Gauss-Euclidean data structures in Einsteinian mechanics?
Very good, sir. I believe the answer to your question is about 2. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. You've been a